Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 967 for the 17th of October. The Russian forces are ramping up their offensive operations inside Ukraine. More and more attacks is being reported across the front line, and the front line is now looking really congested. So I'm going to go from the anti-clockwise direction, starting from the Kherson front, which is pretty much a nothing burger. As usual, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported Russian attack towards the Dnipropetrovsk direction, which is nothing much. There's shelling reported at Komishane, which is also not important. Like, this is not really important, but it was reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. Shelling is reported also Korivka, geolocation of a Lancet hitting a Ukrainian vehicle at Ukrainka, which is interesting that Lancets are actually operating around this sector. And this comes after the previous day that we have shelling reported at Zorata Balka and Kreshchenivka. I wonder, and then now we have shelling reported at Sokorivka. I wonder if there is some kind of a build-up of Ukrainian forces around here. As I mentioned before, a long time ago, this peninsula here is perfect for the Ukrainians to actually create a foothold for them to then fight outwards, because it would represent a good defensive position. It's very hard to push them out because there's a choke point around here. Of course, it's also hard for them to push out. But if they can actually, push out quickly, this could become a good base of operation. But we are not sure. So we are just continue to see how this continue to progress. It's important to note, as you can see, if I zoom out, you can see the actual river now. It looks actually like this. It is possible for them to cross. It's not impossible. So we just continue to monitor the situation around this sector. Over at the Zaporizhia front, we have fighting reported over at Pelivka. Shelling is reported at Pelivka, attack at Novoandrievka, Novodanilivka, and Malatomashka. There is still no Zaporizhia offensive from the Russian side. So my estimates and prediction on this part is 100% wrong. That I thought that the Russians would do something after after this reforming of the group of forces. So we move on to the Velika Novosibirsk sector of the Donetsk front. There is fighting reported in the region of Storozheve, and there is shelling reported at Temerivka, and fighting is reported at Levadne. Otherwise, this is a bit more quiet in this area. Now we go to the very busy part. Over at the Donetsk front, you can see over this Vodiane. Okay, let's just do this. No, a bit too much. So over the Voleda region, the Russian forces are fighting is fighting at Konstantinivka, Antonivka, Katerinivka, Vodiane, Bohofyevlenka, Voleda, and Novoyukrainka. And as you can see, this is basically the entire front line that the Russians are actually making push. This is a massive operation. It looks like there's fighting reported all across the region. So we just continue to monitor the situation around this area here. Previously, I have marked Ilinka as fighting. I just realized there's another Ilinka just nearby, which is actually further up north over here. So I suspect that this might actually be the Ilinka that the Russians may be attacking. I actually have no freaking idea which Ilinka they are referring to. So let's see. They mentioned Ilinka here along with Katerinivka, Korakove. So it could be this one, it could be actually this one. So because of the grouping of the settlements that they mentioned. Over at the Korakove sector, Russian forces are fighting in the region of Yergivka. Russian Defense Ministry and Russian sources claim that the Russian forces have captured Masymelenivka. Fighting is being reported there by the Ukrainian side, but the declaration from the Russian Defense Ministry is that they have captured it. There is footage of the raising of the flag on top of the center of the building, on a taller, like 4-5 story or 3-4 story building in the middle of Masymelenivka. They look pretty relaxed. So at least a good chunk of the region area around here means is pretty secure. They are not going to get sniped. So there is a good chance that the Russians may actually have a success around Masymelenivka. Fighting is reported at Khorostre region, as mentioned, Ilinka, and towards Korakove. Shelling is reported at Beresky. So this is the current situation over at Korakove. Masymelenivka, we definitely will want to have more details, more more geolocation and confirmation, at least concession from the Ukrainian mapping that they have lost Maximilianivka. Then we will declare the capture on the DPA side. We over at the Khernik region, Russian forces are fighting at Zoriane, and also at Izmailivka and over at Sukharini. There is some major actions around Sukharini region. So over this area here, the Russian forces have captured more grounds. This is information from the Ukrainian mapping, with the Russian forces taking more of the northwestern part of Sukharini, and they are on the verge of full capture of Sukharini. Just a little bit more. The distance from the front line to the very end is around 1.5, 1.6 kilometers. So it's pretty close. But of course, 1.6 kilometers is still pretty far. No, driving is very near. No, but try running. No, it's not that near. There is also fighting reported over at Novodimitrivka. It might be related to this push around here, where the Russians are pushing in this direction. So it could be related to the reports about fighting at Novodimitrivka. So that's all for this area. Further up north at the Selidove region, we only have fighting reported around here, according to both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Exact location of fighting is unclear. Geolocation of Russian forces in the north does not change the front line, but it does confirm that the Russians have this this microchip around here. It looks like a microchip to me, but of course this is not a microchip. This is a water plant. It looks like a purification plant, or no wastewater processing plant, something like this. Whatever it is, yeah, it's over here. When you zoom out, it looks like a microchip. So over at this Pokrov sector of the Pokrov front, Russian forces are fighting in the region of Lysivka, Sukia, Tuzminograd, as well as Promin. And then there is geolocation of Russian forces inside Lysivka. There's two streets at Lysivka. So there's one street, this is the second street, and in the northern street, the Russian forces have probably advanced, invalidating part of the Ukrainian claims. So this confirmed Russian advance inside Lysivka, but no, not a lot. There's just a bit. So the distance from the geolocation to the end of the street is around 800 meters. So it's decent, it's decent. Okay, so that's then the shelling reported at Pokrovsk as well as Mykolaiv. But yeah, that's just shelling reports. We move on. Someone told me that it's very irritating to see all this notification. Give me a second. Yeah, I disabled Steam and also my WhatsApp. No, I know that sometimes though I forgot to mute the notification on WhatsApp. Then there's no notification coming. Then people thought that someone WhatsApp them. So yeah, so sorry for that. Over the New York front, at the New York front, there is fighting reported at Torex, Skibinivka, Nelipivka, as well as Sukabalka. So this is the usual. There's nothing particularly special about this. So after the very complex mapping yesterday, you can see that the front line is a bit more cleaner right now. So we will continue to monitor the situation over this sector. It's still pretty foggy. So the fog of war here is still pretty thick. Over at the Bakhmut front is one of this crazy place because the Russians have launched a CHASIV YAR offensive. So other than the fighting reported at Bilakhora, Priteshny, and Stuposhki, which is not exactly important, and somehow Ivanivsky was mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, I want to zoom in into the central part of the Bakhmut front. Russian forces, based on Russian mapping, have claimed a much larger region than what DPF mapped. Let me zoom in. So yesterday we have geolocation of this Russian forces at this position, but according to the Russian mapping, they actually went further, claiming that the Russians have a much expanded control around this sector. And this could also contribute to the fighting reported at Stuposhki. And so there is fighting reported now towards the Shevchenko district, and they're fighting through the forest right now. So this is pretty significant because this really, broke into the CHASIV YAR's soft underbelly, literally. So the Ukrainians is going to find defending really hard, because if you look at the terrain, it's difficult to attack, but it's also super hard to defend right here. This is looking really complicated right now. I think the defense line is going to be pretty complicated. So we're just going to see how the Russians continue to storm through this area here, where they get bogged down. There is clear settlements that the Ukrainians can hold grounds. So along these settlements are probably where the line is going to be. maybe around here as well. So the non-urban region is going to be lost to the Russians most likely, because it's a bit complicated, I would say, for the Ukrainians to hold the lines. That's just my imagination. So over in the northern part of the CHASIV YAR, Russians also made advance around here. According to the Ukrainian mapping plus geolocation, Russian forces have expanded control over in the Sovneve or Otobursky micro district, with the Russian forces expanded their control, capturing the entire eastern part of this district. So we will just continue to monitor the advance. It's like I say, it's a surprise to me that the Russians really want to go for CHASIV YAR. So fighting is now reported at CHASIV YAR, and there is also declaration from the Russian source saying that they have captured Kalinina, which was already announced to be captured in September by the Russian Defense Ministry, and was conceded. The eastern part was conceded to the Russians in 17th of July. So the remaining part is actually over in this western part, and there's a high chance that the Russians may have already fully captured this area here. Combining with the advance coming in the south, the front line may actually look a bit more like this. So the Russians are definitely now making this pincer, in a sense. If this is what the advance is currently happening, we are looking at some kind of a two-prong attack on CHASIV YAR. So very, very daring attack by the Russians. Let's see how this continue to develop. Maybe there is some changes in terms of the personnel or the units defending CHASIV YAR that triggered the Russians to give it a try. So in the northern flank, there is also actions. Russian forces are fighting at Rakhorivka, Orikovo-Vasilivka, and towards Minkivka. And as you can see, this all happens all at the same time. The Russians are literally pushing the entire front line right now at Bakhmut. This is literally just the entire front line. It's very similar to the situation over at the Donetsk. Very, very fierce. That the Russians just pushing everywhere. So this is why I start off by saying that, it seems like the Russians are really, starting a new phase of operations. There is fighting reported at Serbianka. I'm not exactly sure where the fighting come from. And there's also fighting reported at Sivers, or it could be just shelling, as our front line isn't really that far out right now. So that's all for the Sivers front. At the Crimea front, Russian forces are pushing at Torsky. Bilohorivka, maybe just shelling at Novosadove. So that's all from the Crimea. We move to the southern part of the Sviatove front. Russians attack at Druzilubivka, Korakivka, Novomikhailivka, Katerinivka, and Nevsky. And you can see this big arrow movement is getting more and more intense. But we have no indication of exactly where. The main push seems to be around Nevsky, because Nevsky was just declared as captured yesterday. So Makievka might actually be another one, which contributes to the attack on Novomikhailivka and Katerinivka. So let's see how these continue to move on. Over in the northern part of Sviatove front, there is fighting reported over at Druzerelne, the Nadia, Peshotrevneve, and Vishneve. As you can see, this is also another big arrow movement. Fighting is reported towards Lozova, but this is actually part of the Pischane front. So you can see this big arrow movement, and they're going to punch towards this heavy defense line around here that's protecting Borova, which is over here. So we shall see whether this push will go anywhere. Tentatively, we have no frontline changes around here. The latest was over at Vishneve, where the Russians actually captured this, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, on the 1st of October. If we go to Pischane, at the Pischane front, we have fighting reported towards Novoosinovo, Kolesnikivka, Krylyakivka, and of course towards Lozova, as mentioned earlier. So no updates regarding this area. So we move further up north. There's fighting reported at Stepova, Novoselivka, Petropavlivka. Kolobivka is mentioned again. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, there's a good chance that the Russians will indeed have this advance in the front line around this sector. Shelling is reported at Kupiansk by the Russian Defense Ministry. I'm still pondering whether to call it an attack, because if the Russians are indeed at this yellow line, then maybe they are already in striking distance on Kupiansk. But I'm still holding back this urge to change the front line, because we just don't have the mapping to really prove that to be the case. So that's all from the Kupians. Over at the Kharkiv front, the Russian forces continue their push around this sector. Fighting is reported at Verchansky Kotori, Voschansk, Staritsia, and Lipsy. Shelling is reported at Ruska Lozova. So that's all from this area. The Kharkiv front continue to be a little bit active, with the Ukrainians seems to be put a lot more focus on Staritsia. So let's see how this continue to move on. Over at the Kursk front, we have the Russians continue their counteroffensive, and the main group of the fighting is actually over at the western flank. This is the main fighting area, and Russians are also still pushing Novi Put, Blakovo. There is a clash between the two forces over at Ruskaya Konopelka. As mentioned, the Russians are pushing down the railway line. Fighting is still reported at Malaya Loknia, and then we'll go into the western flank. I just want to zoom in a bit. You can see this is the railway line, and the Russians are pushing in this area here, with the Ukrainian forces are clashing with them. So that's the area that I'm talking about. The Russian sources continue to assert that the Russians indeed have this area here, and the Ukrainians are trying to resist and circumvent around here. So this is information coming from the pro-Russian sources. As you can see, Blakovo is under the threat of encirclement. So let's see how this progress. We totally didn't have any much objective information or like geolocation video footages to show this. The Russian sources did say that they have footage, so I didn't see that. So I also didn't dig deeper. So let's see how this goes. Over the western flank, which is where the main action is, so we need to talk about this. So the Russian forces currently is attacking over at Novo Ivanovka, and they have been geolocated to have captured more, confirmed to have captured Zeleny Shaik, or at least the western part of it. So, and the Ukrainians were counter-attacking Zeleny Shaik, and however, it doesn't seem to be successful. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces retreating from the failed attack was geolocated. However, Russians also have vehicles immediately getting destroyed the moment they leave Zeleny Shaik. So the clashes around here is extremely fierce. Ukrainian forces are holding positions around the water body, and they're probably still holding Tosty Lok. There is still clashes reported at Zeleny Klin, although I'm still not sure if the Russians actually hold this position, with fighting reported around this area. And the Ukrainians are also still pushing Lyubimovka, with the Russians are fighting in this area as well. So this sector is very, very intense right now. This is where the fiercest fighting in the Kursk front is currently happening, with the Russians trying to outmaneuver the Ukrainians, but to limited success. It's totally not as what the Russian mapping suggests. It's not this close of an encirclement. Not this close. It is a bit wider, I would say, because the Russians are moving out from the settlement, immediately get destroyed by drones and whatnot. So the movement around here is definitely not so free. So we just continue to wait and see how this continue to develop. Otherwise, that's it. So this is the situation report for the day of 967 for the 17th of October. So thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. Lately, my energy level is pretty low. I'm pretty busy. Played football yesterday. So came back, I didn't do the frontline changes report. So yeah, I'm just super tired. So I will see how I can ramp up my reporting if I can. But lately, just very fatigued. But hopefully you understand and you can continue to support the work and do help to share. Algorithm has put DPA back to the the non-blessed position, so we are not getting blessed anymore. So hopefully the YouTube gods will bless DPA soon again. But anyway, thank you for watching. Do press the like button again, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.